What's going on, everyone? This is Dom, and today we're taking a look at the Moto G4 and G4 Plus. So here's the deal, with both of these phones, they're actually a lot alike, and it's really about determining what the differences are and why you would choose one over the other. So I'm gonna break it down for you here. In terms of specifications, internally, both of these are almost identical. They both have an octa-core Snapdragon processor clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. There's also the Adreno 405 GPU, a 3000 milliamp hour battery, and at the base model, we have 2 gigabytes of RAM across the board in both of these. Now, both the Moto G4 and G4 Plus come packing 16 gigabytes of internal storage, which can be upgraded for a fee, but there is a micro SD card slot underneath the back cover on both of these puppies, which will allow you to expand the storage up to 128 gigabytes. Now, here's the good news. Both of these phones will work across most all major US carriers, which is pretty fantastic. Even Verizon and Sprint, you can just pop your SIM card in there and you're good to go. Now, the bad news about that is they both feature micro SIM card slots. So if you want to use a nano SIM card, you're gonna have to use the included adapter. Now, here's one of my biggest face palms about both of these phones. There's no NFC, and with Android Pay and stuff like that coming up on the rise, it just seems logical to put it in there. I mean, really, how much more would that have cost them to include NFC? Luckily, the people over at Lenovo and Motorola didn't skimp on the display. This year, we have a 5.5 inch 1080p display, good for 401 pixels per inch, and it's definitely very bright and crispy, but I did notice a slight green tint to mine. Nothing I couldn't live with though. It's definitely usable, perfectly fine, just a minor annoyance of mine. Now, as far as the design goes here, well, as you can see, it's pretty plain Jane. Not a whole lot special happening with the G4 and the G4 Plus, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can customize accent colors and backplates and stuff like that using Moto Maker if you choose to do so, but I have just the plain black model, and as you can see, it's just kind of understated. Not much special happening here, but again, you gotta look at what you're paying for this phone. As far as the software and performance goes, well, we're dealing with Motorola here, so we have the typical Moto stuff going on. So it's a very clean Android experience, not a whole lot of bloat anywhere, and just some Moto features tucked away for when you need them. Performance has been mostly smooth in my experience. I mean, we're dealing with a Snapdragon 617 processor, so it's not quite flagship level, but really, this shouldn't be anything that's going to bog down your day-to-day use. Gaming is definitely doable on this thing, though you might notice some frame dropping and stuff like that, but really at the end of the day, it's a solid performer. So here's the biggest question of all. We have these two phones that look pretty much identical, and one costs more than the other. So what's the difference between the G4 and the G4 Plus? So basically there are two main differences here. The Moto G4 has a 13 megapixel camera, while the G4 Plus has a 16 megapixel camera with laser autofocus. Now, aside from that, the only other difference here is that the G4 Plus has a fingerprint sensor below the display on the front side. So really, that's what you're paying for if you want to upgrade to the G4 Plus. Now, here's the thing about the fingerprint sensor though. It doesn't actually do anything else other than read your fingerprint, and it's not even the fastest fingerprint reader out there. So I would kind of throw that out the window if you don't care about having a fingerprint sensor, and really consider which one you should buy, seeing as there's only a 3 megapixel difference between the two. But do megapixels matter in this case? Well, I'm gonna leave some photo samples here and below that you can check out for yourself. Let me know if you can see a huge difference between the Moto G4 and G4 Plus in terms of camera quality, because at the end of the day, if you don't care about a fingerprint sensor, that's what you're paying for. Luckily, around the front side, both of them feature a 5 megapixel shooter. If you're into selfies, they got you covered. Now, in terms of battery life, so there's a 3000 milliamp hour battery inside of both of these suckers, but here's the thing. I was only able to get about 3.5 to 4 hours on a good day, 3.5 being kind of the average there. And that's just kind of meh to me, but you do have turbocharging included. But again, I feel like 3000 milliamp hour battery, I should be getting a lot more battery life out of this, and hopefully software tweaks can fix this in the future. So the name of the game here is to manage your expectations and choose wisely, because the Moto G4 starts out at $199, and that'll get you the 16 gigabyte model with 2 gigabytes gigabytes of RAM. Now, unfortunately, you can't upgrade the RAM on the Moto G4, but you can bump up the storage to 32 gigabytes for an extra 50 bucks. However, the Moto G4 Plus has a couple of different configurations that might interest you. So for $249, you can get 16 gigabytes of internal storage with 2 gigabytes of RAM. So basically, right there, you're just paying for the added 3 megapixels on the camera and the fingerprint sensor. But if you upgrade to the $299 model, you can get 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of internal storage. Honestly though, at the high end, for $299 for the Moto G4 Plus, I would tell you to just save 100 bucks, however long that might take you, and get the OnePlus 3, because that's going to be a much better smartphone for the money. There's some tough competition here in the budget smartphone realm. There's a lot of phones out there, a lot of different choices to make. Let me know what your pick is in the comments section below. Personally, I like the G4 Plus. I like having that fingerprint sensor. I like the 16 megapixel camera and laser autofocus, but let me know what your choice is for any budget phone on the market in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this review, feel free to leave it a thumbs up, as it does help out the channel a lot. Also, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thanks again for watching, everyone. This is Dom, and I'll catch you in the next video.